Hello and welcome to Social Perspectives. I'm J. Gentile Everett. Today we start our Black History Month of programs. Black America has not only faced a rather unusual plight, but also had to cope with the psychological and the emotional damage that accompanied so much of the social horror. But occasionally, during these early days of Black freedom, someone with darker hue would be captured by a mission. And so shackled to this mission they would be. It would prove to be the one thing that defined all else associated with them. This description typifies the mission and message of the founder and lineage of the oldest Black-owned and operated prep school in the United States of America, the Laurinburg Normal and Industrial Institute of Laurinburg, North Carolina. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with that story.
Double Vision RT and Bostic Films are proud to announce that they are currently accepting applicants for various roles for the movie Three Rims and a Hubcap, written by best-selling author Gentile. Please feel free to visit the website at threerimsandahubcap.com for more information and view methods of submitting your interest. Again, visit Three Rims and a Hubcap for more information. The producers are standing by.
Welcome back to Social Perspectives. We're delighted to have one of the greatest educators in the Scotland County area. He happens to be from the lineage of the founder of Laurinburg Institute, Mr. E.M. McDuffie, and we have his grandson, who's the president of the school today. His name is Mr. Frank McDuffie Jr. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great.
We're so glad to have you join our show.
All right. What a wonderful show you have.
Well, thank you so much. We're going to get right to it.
Okay.
Laurinburg Institute has an interesting story. I have a few questions I want to ask you just to set the story straight.
Okay.
Is it true that some of the local merchants contacted Booker T. Washington, say in 1904, and they were interested in establishing a school for Black children? They spoke with Mr. Washington, and he had two of his recent graduates, your grandparents, Mr. and Mrs. McDuffie. They accepted that challenge to come to Laurinburg, North Carolina, and start a school to educate Black kids.
Well, accuracy.
Yes.
They contacted William Edwards
Okay.
and Booker T. Washington.
Okay.
Mr. Edwards has started a school called Snow Hill Institute, 100 miles south of Tuskegee,
Okay.
the first Black purely academic school.
Okay.
At Snow Hill Institute, my grandparents were there. They took courses, did some work at Tuskegee, but they were graduating from Snow Hill.
Okay.
Mr. Washington said, I don't have anybody who's ready this year, but I'm going to check with my prodigy and see what he has at Snow Hill.
Oh, okay.
So they made arrangements for Booker T to come down to Snow Hill. Good question. How long does it take to go 100 miles on a horse? 2 days.
2 days.
2 days. So you didn't just go 100 miles.
I see.
You planned to go.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think so.
So they got ready to receive Booker T. And my grandmother, Gentle, who you got to know,
Yes.
said that she and my granddad, and she called him Mac,
Okay.
had secretly gotten married, 17 and 18 years of age.
Oh my goodness.
And
the story
yeah.
thickens, this plot thickens. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they were standing online, and people had all this eloquent speech and everything. Booker T was saying why someone needed to go. And they was talking to one another when he said, so who would like to go? And everybody in that class stepped backwards because nobody wanted to go from the oppression of Alabama to the oppression of North Carolina.
Absolutely.
So Dr. Washington walked up to them and said, so you two would be interested.
Wow.
And they said, she and Granddad could not tell Dr. Washington no.
Oh my goodness. Now wait a minute. We're talking about 1904.
Well, we're talking about 1901.
All right. We're talking about the turn of the century.
Turn of the century.
Black people just been free less than 40 years, 35 years or so.
That's right.
Now they're just being freed, and,
right.
and they're going to make this journey from Alabama.
Tuskegee.
How are they going to get to North Carolina?
My students, of which you were one,
Yes.
said, Mr. McDuffie, they walked all the way. I said, no, they weren't crazy.
Yeah.
They just didn't have a horse.
Okay.
And cars hadn't been really developed yet.
That's true.
So they started walking. But because they weren't crazy, they could hop a ride on a wagon or jump a train. They did that. But the tenacity to attempt to come from Alabama
Wow.
to North Carolina and arrive with 15 cents.
But wait a minute, what about the plan? What about how am I going to pay for all of this? How I'm going to protect myself? You got to deal with the Ku Klux Klan.
Right.
You had white dissidents. You had white opposition. No telling what you were going to run into in the Deep South. You had to worry about the nights when darkness would cover all kinds of evil.
That's right.
And these are two young
17
people.
and 18, yeah. Well, probably it was because they were 17 and 18.
Probably. Maybe they didn't see the danger. Maybe they didn't see the danger.
Right. Just married, trained, taking on the world. But they had a mission. And that mission is still living even in Gentile Everett.
Yes, well, I hope so.
Yes,
I
sir.
certainly hope so.
Yes, sir.
But it's just hard for me to imagine. I mean, to me, that's special. You have to be endowed with a special kind of spirit. You had embraced a special mission for a special purpose to take on this kind of challenge at so much personal risk. But they did it.
Yeah. The reality in this country, if you're a black man or woman and you do anything, you take it on a risk.
I see.
And
Indeed.
it isn't unique, it is unnecessary.
I see.
Just think of the capacities that could be developed if given just normal opportunity of development. How many minds could have developed a cure for cancer if they had been given a chance to be educated?
I agree. Education certainly is the substratum upon which you can build a very strong and capable life with unlimited potential. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated with your grandparents. I can't help but to be fascinated with them. They get to Laurinburg. Where are the students going to come from? Where would the financing come from? You just can't go open a school. Somebody has to do something. You got to build it.
Right. Well, when they got to Laurinburg, they went to the gentlemen and women who had written Washington.
Okay.
And they said, we're here to open a school. Where do we go? Because Booker T had been in touch with them.
I see.
To tell them the McDuffies are coming.
Okay.
And the people told them, we don't have anything. We don't have nothing. So my granddad puts on his cadet uniform from Tuskegee and goes to the front door of the ex-Confederate Colonel, Billy McLaurin. He says, knock, 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 on his front door, 1904.
Wow. Wow.
And that wasn't normal.
No, that was not normal.
And he says, I'm here to open a school for colored, and I'm asking for your protection and support. And the gentleman just stood and looked at him, realizing that this was going to affect a change. But he still didn't respond. So my grandfather, thinking he couldn't hear well because he was an elderly gentleman,
I see.
he steps into his house and says louder, I'm here to open
Oh,
a
my
school
goodness
for
gracious.
colored.
Oh, my.
And Billy McLaurin still didn't respond. So my grandmother says, Mac, let's go. And as they walked away, she said, I hope he doesn't brutalize us. Tar feather.
Yes,
with
sure.
something
Sure.
to that effect.
Yes.
And they went back to where they were staying on Center Street,
Okay.
which was the first paved street in the black community.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know what Center Street is, but I did not know that.
I know you can relate.
No,
to it.
my.
So they went back, and 3 days later, Billy McLaurin came by and said, get on the back of my buckboard. And they didn't know if they were going to be ridden out in the country
Sure.
and strung up or
Sure.
whatever. But you couldn't say no. So they got on the back, and he drove by the creek, swamp, and said, I'm going to sell you some property, which was extraordinary.
Hmm.
Question, I'm a teacher.
Okay.
I'm a coach. That's why
Yes.
I'm like this. Not as nicely clad as you
Oh,
are.
Lord.
But I asked my students, and I said, he was elated. My grandmother was down. We got to start our work in the swamp.
Sure.
But he was elated. And here's the question, why was he elated? And the answer is, he wasn't going to get killed today.
Yes.
Think about the perspective.
Yeah.
Not today.
Not today.
Maybe
But still,
another
but still thinking that it may be inevitable. It still may
He
be.
might run into it.
Because we're still talking about the turn of the century.
Right.
Now, we got to understand that the minds, the cultural mores,
Mm.
societal structure was
Fear.
of such that fear was of such that there were certain things you just didn't do as a black man or woman,
That's right.
and you certainly were not privileged to challenge what had been established.
You couldn't be educated.
And all right, now education. Let's go back to that part. We know that during slavery, the one thing that the masters did not want was slaves to be educated. Because I think he felt that that would open new vistas of opportunity, and it would open up their mind to new realities and new probabilities for them. In other words, they would become more engaged in their own self-preservation and their self-amelioration, that they may decide we need to do something about this institution.
And we said it very simply. If you are not educated, you can remain a slave.
Yes,
Just by educating, you become a captive.
I see.
And captives are dangerous.
I see.
The whole emotional attitude was
Wow.
shifted.
Okay, so here they are. They're in Laurinburg. They got this land, this swamp land, and they build a school. How do they build the school?
They built it with the help of what God provided. There were trees.
Okay,
And they got citizens who had children to cut the trees. And my grandmother said they formed a building and admitted their first student on September the 15th, 1904.
well, you know I remember that because I was a student there, and let me say the most life-changing educational moment for me was spending those years at Laurinburg Institute with Mr. McDuffie Jr. here and his father, Dr. McDuffie. They made such an impact on my life that I started to think differently I became aware of another reality that was always around me, but I never did see it. So I'm grateful for you guys.
We're grateful for you.
Well, believe me, I really do appreciate it.
And the reality of what you reflect is the effect of education.
Yes.
Just, God had talented you. You just needed to have the perspective of what you could do.
Well, there's no doubt. Lauren Bergensen certainly believed in that. No doubt about that. Okay, so now they get the building built. They get their first student in on September 15th, 1904. I remember the September 15th because that was the day that you were always open the school. At least when I was there, that was always open. Okay, that was opening day. Okay, now they admit their students. We're still talking about early 1900s.
That's right.
And what fascinated me was your grandfather was able to build a school for the local students and build it ultimately for students from other states. How did that happen?
Well, Grandma and Granddad had learned brick making. So they started making bricks. And the campus, as you well know, is a brick school.
Yes.
And as they made bricks, they had to do something with them. So they started putting them together, making buildings.
So you speak about this so cavalierly, like, okay, they just did something. No, there was a genius at work here to put this kind of program together.
It was a necessity of people to be developed.
I see.
And that was the commitment. So people who had gotten themselves trained, and my family was well trained.
No doubt about that.
So they came to work at Laurinburg, not for money. That's the most amazing thing. And the students came without any money.
So here we're talking about a mission.
A mission.
And a message and a man. The man, the mission, the message.
Yeah.
All came together. And of course, definitely. And he had the support of the love of his life, who embraced that vision and took it on as much as she took on him.
That's right.
So here together, they start this school. I'm still trying to figure out what I don't know. And I've heard a lot about the story, of course. I've never heard how he was able to build it across the country. It became such an attractive place.
Well, at that time, abolitionists still existed.
Okay.
We didn't fight the Civil War until the Union started losing.
I see.
Then the black man was brought in to fight and close it out.
Okay.
But there were abolitionist people. That's why we have the Morehouse, the Spelmans, the Hamptons.
I see.
There were people who supported the necessity of creating this vast number of people and bringing them into the heartbeat of America.
Okay.
Well, no one can enter college without going through high school.
Sure.
So Laurinburg, for example, was founded before North Carolina Central University was founded. Most of your historical black colleges had high schools because that's where the women would often work who had higher education.
I see.
They built buildings on the campus with these bricks that looked like Tuskegee.
I see.
So as citizens came into the awareness of the opportunity of knowledge, they were embraced at Laurinburg. I'll give you another quick story. They built the first hospital in Scotland County. Hospital that performed surgeries.
Okay.
And it operated from the late 20s into the early 50s.
Wow.
Dr. Jackson, his sons were some of the national tennis champions of the United States.
Okay.
You had people who went to Tuskegee and Morehouse and Spelman who came to work at Laurinburg. All kind of talent.
Wow, that is amazing.
And so, if you build it, they will come.
So your grandfather built it.
They built it.
There's no doubt about that. And it was a public and private.
No, it was private.
It was
It
private.
would never been anything but private.
So it's always been private.
At nothing else. What happened was there wasn't a public facility.
Okay.
So they
I
allowed
got you.
children to come to school.
Okay.
Gentile, you know, there was never a gate at Laurinburg.
No, it wasn't.
People could just walk onto the campus.
I did at a very early
Well,
age.
your daddy did.
Sure,
Your
sure.
granddad did.
Yes, all of them did.
So the reason was that was the mission. I, today, should not have to be responsible for anything but the mission of education.
Yes.
But I have to be concerned about many
Many other things. The world has shifted so much, and the value system has changed so much. So your grandfather was president of the school, let's say from 1904
to 54.
to 1954.
Right.
Now, in 1954, we know something happened that changed the educational landscape for America. We know that. Brown versus Board of Education.
That's right.
And when that happened, then states took it upon themselves to make sure that they would provide separate but equal education before, and it was separate but equal. And then in 1954, okay, we're going to build all of these schools for black and white.
Almost. And
Right.
That migration hadn't happened yet.
This is my problem with that. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Okay.
Now, if 1954, it became the law of the land that, okay, we're going to get rid of all of this segregation. We're going to bring in this integrated concept of education. Now, I wasn't born in 1954. So what I can't understand is why, very early in my life though, second grade, why should I remember schools being all black when in 1954 was when the law, maybe this is not even a fair question to you, but I've often wondered, we're talking about 17 years. Why does it take 17 or 18 years for a law to be enforced or enacted? I just found that strange.
Let me give you a little relationship with Laurinburg.
Okay.
54 was when a black man who went to a black kindergarten, a black elementary school, a black high school, a black college, and a black law school
Yes.
comes in front of the Supreme Court
Yes.
and
That's
says it cannot be separate and equal.
Yeah. They're inherently unequal.
And there had to be.
If they're separate, they're inherently unequal.
Right.
Yes.
So he argued and won.
Yes, he did.
And
We're talking about Thurgood Marshall.
Thurgood Marshall. When they developed the Justice Department of the United States, its mission and responsibility was to safeguard the development of the black man.
Okay.
The Justice Department. The 14, 15 amendments. All of that was designed to bring this whole group of people into part of the United States. But the unfortunate racism, for the only known purpose that we can't understand today, it was just all built on the color of a person.
My. We're going to hold right there. We're going to take a break right here. And please stay tuned. We'll be right back, and we're going to be talking more with Mr. Frank Bishop McDuffie about the Laurinburg Institute story. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
When you're in need of making the old new again with beautiful upholstery, D. Barry's Upholstery is the best, whether it's automobile interior or exterior, boats, church pews, or any residential or commercial seating and the like. Look no further. D. Barry Upholstery's got you covered. Call D. Barry's at 910-276-2265 and experience new again.
Welcome back to Social Perspectives. My conversation with Mr. McDuffie Jr. has been so spirited. We've spent so much time in the first segment. We have decided that the excitement of the first segment has given impetus to a second show with Mr. McDuffie Jr. as our special guest as we continue to talk about this interesting school in this interesting place called Laurinburg, North Carolina. Ms. McDuffie, we want to take this time to let you know that we cannot express our gratitude to you for all of the information that you have brought to us regarding Laurinburg Institute. There's so much more we want to hear about. In your closing, is there something that's special about the Institute you'd like to share with us?
Sure. The capacity of a man to prepare himself and his family for the future is what education should be about.
Indeed.
Just as I said it tonight, we both got excited.
Yes.
We talked, when the gentleman told us we had talked 22 minutes, we couldn't believe it.
Couldn't believe it, exactly.
But here was the question. We had gotten up to about 1924.
Right.
What are we
That's all.
going to do next?
Exactly. And we have so much more of this rich history to cover.
Yeah.
So much more.
I'm excited about coming back.
Absolutely.
And I will promise you, I'll wear a suit next time.
Oh, no, you're Mr. McDuffie Jr. You can wear whatever you like. It's perfect. But we are really, really excited about this Laurinburg Institute story because I know all of the lives that it has impacted all over the world. We're not just talking about some local phenomenon. We're talking about a school that has reshaped and brought meaning to so many people in so many different areas, not just basketball or music or politics, but a kaleidoscope of areas. It has always been that power behind it all, Laurinburg Institute.
Yes, sir.
And we are just really honored that you blessed us today with your presence.
It's been a delight.
Thank you so much. We can't wait to have Mr. McDuffie back here with us for a second show as we continue to talk about this great school that's still waiting to impact new lives. So we're going to ask you to make sure you stay tuned for that, and we will make sure that you get all the information necessary so you can keep up with this Laurinburg Institute story. Please, everyone, take special note of all of those who help us do this work, all of those who give of their time and their treasure to keep our show going and to keep our message of love being able to be sent around the world. We want the world to know that there is no power on earth like the power of love. Thank you all so much for joining us on Social Perspectives. We look forward to seeing you the next time. Until then, everyone, be blessed, be happy. I'm J. Gentile Everett. God bless.